back to the second hour of Breakfast Central. Despite Africa's vast cultural and geographic diversity, traveling within the continent remains a complex challenge due to visa restrictions, high flight costs, poor infrastructure, and safety concerns. However, efforts to enhance intra-African travel are gaining traction as several countries like Kenya, Rwanda, the Gambia, Benin, and not forgetting to Seychelles, have eliminated visa requirements for African travelers. Ghana announced its visa-free policy for African countries in January of this year, 2025. I'm sure Olive also has more concerning South Africa too.
Indeed. South Africa also has simplified visa processes for Nigerians, offering 5-year multiple entry visas and removing the need for passport submission. Now, despite these achievements, challenges persist. As of late 2024, only few countries like Mali, Niger, Rwanda, and São Tomé and Príncipe have ratified the African Union's Free Movement Protocol.
Concerns over border management, job competition, and visa revenue continue to impede a broader adoption. Join us this morning in Breakfast Central to discuss this in depth. We're joined by the president of the League of African Ambassadors, Ambassador Nwane Omingi, and also join us the former Nigerian ambassador to Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, Ambassador John James Usanga. One welcome to you, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To have you, to quickly add that he is also the deputy spokesperson of the league. Usanga.
Okay. Now I'll start with you, Ambassador Omingi. As president of the League of African Ambassadors, how do you assess the current political will among African leaders to implement free movement protocol? Oftentimes, this free movement we see is on the higher level of ministers and heads of states, and we're always drumming African solidarity, Africa first, let's unite. When people can't move, European Union citizens, if you're from Serbia and Montenegro, it's easier for you to just move around Africa like it's your backyard, or you're from Germany. It's easier for Europeans to move around Africa than Africans. That's the state we find ourselves today.
Gentlemen and ladies, thank you, and good morning again, viewers. I must confess that the topic this morning, the issue, I classify it as the obstacle between wealth of Africa and poverty. The market, the African market, is too large, but the visa barrier is a restriction, is an impediment. So my assessment is, well, our cup is not half empty, our cup is half full. By your intro, you have mentioned some countries that appears to be keen in, is a work in progress. But of course, out of 54 countries, and you've just mentioned about 6 or 7, you can see that the percentage is still very low. I also want to inform our viewers that is the first theme of our organization: free the access to free the trade. You can't have a free trade when you don't have free access. Market is about movement, movement of goods and capital. So we are focusing as our first campaign. The theme is free the access to free the trade. So my assessment is work have begun, but we need to step up the speed.
All right, let's bring the conversation now to Ambassador Usanga. You, of course, are on the same movement, free access, free trade, but a number of concerns that we hear sometimes would be the fact that if you open these borders, there might be challenges with insecurity and migration. Are these challenges valid, or immigration, I beg your pardon? Are these challenges valid, and how can they be addressed?
Thank you very much for having me. See, some of the smaller countries in Africa, they are very careful about opening their borders because they don't want to be overwhelmed. And then we have this insecurity. My house is burning and you are sitting down. What if the fire gets to your house? So you find out that we're so quick to cooperate on defense and security, but the main reason for our existence as a group, we ignore them. I think that the fear is uncalled for, because if we can cooperate for defense and security, then we can at least activate trade through connectivity. And the major problem, like my colleague has said, is connectivity. if you open up the borders, if you invest in aviation, if you invest in maritime, then it will be easy for us to connect, do our trade, and come back. If you have the resources, there's no point going to another man's country to stay doing nothing. Unless, of course, you don't have anything to offer that country. But when you have something to offer, you have no need to go and sit down there. You take your business to that country, you sell your trade, you do your business, and come out. So the restriction on movement and that fear of being overwhelmed is uncalled for, because everybody brings something to the table, and then the continent grows better and faster. Why is it that smaller countries in Europe are not afraid of being overwhelmed? And there's movement from this country to this country. Why is it that in Africa we are afraid of each other? We have always had this communal nature. Why the change? I think it's just a propaganda, imposed upon us by, maybe our leaders in the past who tried to segregate. We are one country. We are one blood. We are one destiny. We have the same kind of everything, culture and everything. So the basis for that fear is...
I'm really glad. I just want to push back on something that you said, talking about why this is happening. And I wanted to ask, because even referring to the earlier question my colleague asked, you find that it's sometimes even cheaper to travel to European countries than it is to travel to several other African countries. So I want to go to certain countries, I have to go out of the continent to then go into the continent. So why do we have these restrictions in the first place? Why have they been further? I mean, yes, we have made progress, but we still have a very long way to go.
Well, it's not a barrier per se. It's the nature of investment that will make people to communicate. I had that experience several times when I had to go to Lisbon to be able to go to, yes, from Cape Verde, from Guinea-Bissau, I needed to go, if I needed to be in Cape Verde immediately, I needed to go to Lisbon and then connect Cape Verde from there. So it's not a question of, restrictions, but there's investment in aviation, investment in maritime is heavy investment. And then a single country cannot effectively carry it out because it's really heavy. What we need to do is to open up the space, at least look at the existing protocols on trade and free movement of persons, invite business people, entrepreneurs who are able to carry out these kinds of investments. It's easier for me to go to Europe, like you have said, than to go to Guinea-Bissau. If I need to go to Guinea-Bissau and I leave this morning, I won't get there till evening. I have to stopover. I used to have a 10-hour stopover in Dakar to be able to get to Cape Verde from Guinea-Bissau. So it's the nature of investment that really hinders the movement, not that there's official restriction on the movement.
Interesting. Well, as ambassadors, you've carried out very strong diplomatic ties in the countries in which you've also been. But I think for the benefit of our viewers, we'd like to mention what country again, so our viewers can get to understand that you are seated with ambassadors who have represented Nigeria.
Yes, I served in Zambia.
Zambia. Okay. What about you, sir?
I served in Guinea-Bissau with concurrent accreditation to Cape Verde.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, Zambia, Guinea-Bissau, how would you look at their travel opportunities in terms of what you see here in Nigeria in comparison to what you see in these countries that you served? I can see the ambassador is smiling already, in terms of opportunities, in terms of, diplomacy. Let's put it all together.
What lessons can we learn from them, and what can they also learn from us?
The truth of the matter is, in Africa, Nigeria is a giant. And any day, any time, all the countries, they know that. So you can't say that there is, I think Nigeria is being respected abroad, both in Africa. But when it comes to behavior and when it comes to some policies, yes, of course, you know that our brothers in Nigeria, we have to get things quick, faster. But some of our brothers in other countries, like the way I serve, they take their time to do their things. So, which I may credit to what my colleague said. They want to take that fear of being overwhelmed, are always there. But whether there's a progress in both countries, there are.
Okay, I mean, are there policies that we maybe should look at to ensure that there's easier movement? So, for example, some would say removing of heavy taxation on the aviation, the aviation space. Because, for example, if I were in London and I was going to, say, Scotland, I could see a flight for £20, £30. We don't usually have that. It's easier to travel from London to even Morocco. It's cheaper to travel from London to Morocco. So maybe are there policies we need to revisit or we need to implement in the aviation space in terms of even visas, right? Are there policies that we need to implement to ensure that we can see free flow of travel?
When we start talking about, if we begin to address or talk the issue of cost or price, it's like jumping the gun. The barrier now is that I need a visa to go to Zambia. Even when I have served as a high commissioner in Zambia, I still need a visa to go to Zambia.
Wow.
See, I think I want to trace an omission or oversight in the group that designed the African Continental Free Trade. It's supposed to have include free movement to show us to have come in one package. So, but that omission is where we are. What we are saying is the fear again in that is fear of loss of income, because visa generates income. That's another thing we are interrogating. For a start, what we are saying is we are not even asking to waive the visa fee, but
visa on arrival.
Visa on arrival, effective visa on arrival, because the visa on arrival, some countries operate are not visa on arrival. My understanding of visa on arrival, how it should be, is I want to go to Zambia. I buy my ticket, enter plane. At the point of entry, I'll start in and pay whatever visa fee I'm supposed to pay. Not some countries, not when you apply. You still do the process of applying for visa. Visa on arrival.
Before
you go, you get approval. That's you have taken away the visa on arrival. That's the barrier, that restriction. You have brought it back. But what we are saying is that for African countries, by now, what we should even be talking about is not for African movement alone. We should by now talking of that an European, once you get like a Shanghai visa, once you get it, you come to Nigeria or you can access other Africa. That's where we're supposed to be by now. But we're still talking about our own citizens.
Now, talking about citizens, Ambassador Usanga, we've seen ECOWAS is celebrating 50 years of existence. It was formed in Lagos in 1975. We've also seen regional blocks like SADC and the East African Community thrive. In the East African Community, there's even interbanking systems. You can transfer money to Uganda and Kenya. They're almost one monolithic block. So if we've seen the success of regional integration and regional blocks like SADC, ECOWAS, and EAC, why can't we just collapse it into one big African bloc? Why? I mean, it's not like we're just testing the freedom of movement of people and trade for the first time. We've done it in silos. What are the barriers to that? And won't it solve all the problems we've highlighted automatically?
Thank you very much. I don't like to say this, but I have to say it. One of the biggest problems of Africa is this divide and rule policy that was imposed on us, and we adopted it hook, line, and sinker. If you look at ECOWAS, for instance, it is very easy to travel because there are no restrictions on visa. If you have your ECOWAS passport from Nigeria, you can go to any ECOWAS country without being asked questions. Some countries will impose a little tax as a token of generating income. So that works very well. But like my colleague said, what needs to be done is to have a protocol on free movement of persons that applies for the rest of Africa. And this is what we are trying to do. as ambassadors, because we have been out there, we have also experienced some of the problems, and we have made some connections and contacts with the relevant authorities. All we need to do now is to begin to campaign that you influence on your leaders to adopt these policies for the good of Africa. Because if it can work for ECOWAS, then it can be duplicated in other places. If it can work in the standard countries, it can be duplicated. All we need to do is to come to the table and say, how have you made it work for yourself? How can we adopt it to make sure that it is adopted generally for
Rwanda is visa-free to all African citizens as we speak. Why have they not been overrun?
Like I said, they have not been overrun because some people, the country is desirous of growing. Stereotype. People have palpable fear of being overrun, yes, but things are changing, and the whole world is getting fragmented. Our leaders have to be aware that if I don't do something to make Africa stand, then I'm going to be excluded. I'll give you an example. During the COVID pandemic, it was very difficult for Africa to access the, what do you call it now, the immunization?
Vaccination.
Yeah. It was kept there for the West until Africa began to shout and shout and shout. Now that's an indication that the world is shifting to mind its own interest, everybody on his own. We see Europe coming together. It's easy to travel from Portugal to Spain without restrictions. So all we need to do is advocacy to impress on the authorities that there is need to duplicate what is happening in these regional blocks across Africa. Yeah. Otherwise, we may never attain that after program that we have. It will just be something.
It will be on paper.
On paper, no execution.
Well, I'd like us to go to the African Continental Free Trade Area. I know you mentioned it some time back, looking at what they've not included. There were also talks about having a unified currency. What is the League of African Ambassadors doing about this? You've been outside Nigeria. You've used the kwacha, or you name it. You've also been outside the country as well. You've had exchange rates and so on. What are former ambassadors who have experience? What are they going to do about it? Looking at that aspect. And secondly, do you think that your wealth of experience outside the country should actually be used by the current administration to enable, economic growth and also to ensure that Nigeria benefits from the experience that you've gotten?
When it comes to Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, I always say that it is a general on a wheelchair when there is no movement of persons and goods and capitals. Because, everybody knows it, that it requires movement. I don't see difficulties in achieving this in a very short while. I assure you that we have put a lot of programs. I have started a conversation with some director generals of immigration of some countries. So I know that by next year, we are going to have our first conversation in a conference forum with them to hear their fears and then to offer now. Because there is actually no reason, like my colleagues say, ECOWAS is good, SADC is good. So just pronouncement to make it for all Africans. Simple. So I think we are there. So when it comes to single currency, it is possible. Yesterday, in another interview, I said that I will not be surprised if in the next 10 years, Africa will graduate to where the Africans will be calling for one government. Because the awareness is very high already. Africanization is very high. In fact, we, the body of ambassadors, are coming even late. Professionals, artists, market women, students are already canvassing it. They are even taking the lead. So that is why we say, but we are the people maintaining the front line when it comes to international system. So we are the people who goes into negotiation. And I also want to inform our viewers that we are not only the retired that are there, including the serving. So the
current ambassadors
yes,
in different countries as well. But are you not afraid of the Western interference? I mean, take a look at BRICS now.
How?
We had President Trump saying that if they decide to float their currency, he's going to come hard on them. So if African ambassadors,
let me say this. I'm happy for this opportunity. Let me say this. The hard stance of Trump is a blessing to Africa. We just need to cash in and develop. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. Lock us out. Let's develop ourselves. Countries that have developed, it's got to that point. So whatever that is happening in America is for our own advantage. We should, what don't we have? We are shining everywhere. I had a conversation with South Africa in diaspora. I say, you guys are shining stars. Stars don't shine in the day. Come to Africa. Granted, in quote, according to you, there are problems which are likely to be darkness. It is the star need darkness to shine. Come home, let's come and shine. Can't shine there because there's already illumination in that place. So this thing that is happening, Trump's regime is a blessing to Africa, and we need to cash in to develop.
Okay, I'm sure that we can dig into that at some point, but I want to come again to the League of African Ambassadors, and since we're talking about African unity, putting Africa first and ensuring free movement of persons and trade within the continent, there are several countries within the continent that have pulled out of the regional bloc, for example, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. And we're very aware. I don't know if you have representatives in these countries and you know how you all are still able to fare and if they're part of the broader conversations being had.
Yeah, I'd like to say that concerning the withdrawal of those countries, it's just a peripheral distraction. It's just a reaction that is temporary. Efforts are going on. The government cannot just come out, or ECOWAS cannot just come out and tell people that we are doing this, we are doing that. They are brothers. We need each other. They will come back.
You believe?
They will come back, definitely. Because first, there has to be a reaction, and then there has to be a realization. When you realize that you can't make it alone, then you still have to come back.
Ibrahim Traore doesn't seem to agree with that position. It seems, and it does seem like he has a lot of support from his people. If you go on social media, for the past, I think, a week or two, he'd been trending for certain moves. So it seems like his people support him and support the moves that he's making.
So when you run from your house, where do you go to? The bush? You can't run anywhere. This is where you are. This is where you belong. And you are saying, on the one breath, you are detaching from the West. On the other breath, you are embracing the West. It doesn't make sense. You must know that this is your home, and you must be in your house and build it and live it. You can't be, a tree does not make a forest. Even all the resources that you have, if you don't have the capacity, your resources are meaningless. You have to collaborate to be able to achieve what you desire to achieve in terms of independence. You can't live, it's not possible. They will come back. Sometimes when you beat a child and he's hungry, he's angry, he can go to one corner and sit down, maybe reject food. After a while, he comes to his senses and say, instead of hunger to kill me, let me just come back home. Like the prodigal son. They will come back. We are talking to them, not just at the government level, where all of us were engaging their diplomats in one way or the other and telling them the need for us to be stronger together. What is the strength of Nigeria? The strength of Nigeria lies in its population. We are stronger as a country with a very large population. So we'll be stronger as Africans with a large population, a large market. Why is everybody coming to Africa? If you are, like I always say, like Africa is like a football game. Like if you are a football star and then you are just walking in the field, nobody tackles you. But once they pass the ball to you, what happens? Everybody tackles you to prevent you from scoring. But you keep your eyes on the goal. So Africa is a place that is desired by the whole world, right from history. And Africa will remain a key factor in the development of the entire world. If you look at outside the world, outside the country, look at the impact that Africans are making. Look at in all areas. Yes, we might want to say we are backward. We are not backward. No. We are very intelligent and brilliant people doing exploits if the environment is okay. Why do we go to school abroad and take all the awards from 1 to 20? Why do we do inventions that are never attributed to us? Why do we have patents that are not registered in our names? And we are working for companies abroad. In a notice, just call it. So Africans will have to come to that realization that, look, I need to be at home to build my own home because the world is changing. And because the world is changing, nobody is going to spoon feed you again. That indication has already been made clear that look to the intent, oh, Israel. So we have to, persuade them, create the enabling environment that will make our people come back to build Africa. We just need to do that. And that we do through advocacy for good governance, equity, democracy, human rights. These are the things. Because if you make the environment, if you prepare the environment, the economy will naturally run itself.
Right.
It's just like taking a goat to the field. You don't need to feed the goat. It will just move around and eat the grass on its own. So what we need is just create the enabling environment to make us come back home and develop Africa.
Now, Ambassador Ominye, it's been almost 2 years since the new administration came into power, and just a few weeks ago, some ambassadorial nominees were screened. And one of the reasons why that's been given for not appointing ambassadors is that they don't have the resources and the finances, and a lot of missions and embassies abroad are in a sorry state. Could you walk us through the funding of embassies? Who's meant to take care of their of the buildings, of the running of these embassies, and also the implications of not having ambassadors appointed in certain countries?
You know, it's not leadership for you to come to public when you have access to the authority and you have not exploited it. So I will be limited to a certain level of...
Very diplomatic answer.
So the issue here is that, like we have read on the pages of the newspapers, of course, all over the world, diplomacy is capital intensive because you spend not your currency. You like buy in the global market, even though so I am not in a position to deny what has been in the public if it is really from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as the some medias were addressing to about the resources. But beyond resources, diplomatic engagement or posting does not reside with the sending country alone. You make your nomination. The receiving countries will vet your nomination and accept or reject. In that way, let government take their time to vet before sending or before exposing, because it will be embarrassing that the government will put up a name that the receiving government will reject. So that is my position about not having sent there. So I believe that the government is taking their time to, like you said, there's news information has flied, and I hope you also read that the Minister of Foreign Affairs denied that those lists they are referring to, that they denied it.
The screening list.
The screening list, they denied it, that no list have been made available. So I believe that they are doing the normal thing, the procedure.
But if you don't have ambassadors, is there any implication to it?
Well, it's just like to ask a question, if there is no keeper on the post, is there any implication?
Or if there's Onana for Manchester United, or we go back to what happened in India. Yes, already Lion was there.
But we are still having investors. We are still having investors. We are still being engaging in foreign conversations, you know. But I would quickly want to add in the previous question that my colleague answered about the people who pull out from ECOWAS or from the regional. You see, diplomacy is about negotiation and making deals. And you know, and that is what Africa is lacking, which we want to bring. You don't go to table of negotiation very cheap or hungry. You won't get a good deal. So, and that is what I think those countries are doing. They want to get a good deal. And
so
they
we
will
should
not
always negotiate from a position of
not
strength.
Not always negotiate. Thank you. Negotiating from point of strength. So negotiation is ongoing. Serious one is going on.
All right.
So I have no doubt that they'll rejoin.
Speaking about negotiation, and when you were answering earlier, you talked about advocacy. I want us to talk about the latest phrase in the media space, which is Demarketing Nigeria. Recently, in his address at Johns Hopkins University, His Excellency Peter Obi talked about some of the critical challenges facing the country, poverty, economic hardship, but he's gotten reactions from the Lagos State Governor, reactions from Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Governor Orji Uzor have also criticized politicians, saying they should stop going outside Nigeria to demarket the country. So I want to ask, as diplomatic persons, I'm going to be asking the both of you, as diplomatic persons, is there really a thing as demarketing Nigeria? Does it have an impact, especially if they are mentioning situations that might, in actual sense, represent the reality of the everyday Nigerian? So should we have the ostrich in the sand approach, or we try to deal with our issues internally? How do we find that balance?
Thank you very much. This matter is of primary interest to us diplomats. If you have to invite me to your house, I have to be sure that your house is safe for me to come. Assuming you are inviting me to lunch or dinner, I have to be sure that as I come to your house, I will not be chased with a machete or something. I have to ensure that the food that they are going to give me is good. It's not going to poison me. So when you go out there and you are talking about your problems, the problems that are internal to you, and meanwhile, every country has its own problem. You would never see the core issues of America in the mainstream media. You would never see it. Maybe in social media you can see some of those issues. You are looking for investors. You can't go talking about the difficulties you are having in the country, all the kidnappings, and every country has kidnappers. Every country has terrorism, a measure of terrorism, even Germany, all that. You see it happening every day. But all you have to show, assuming somebody raises that question, is what efforts are you making to make sure that if I come with my money, I will not lose that money? What are your policies that ensures that the money I bring to your country to invest, I'll be able to take it out? So every country has a problem. You don't just go and be talking about, you don't wash your dirty linen. Yes, we all know that there are problems. But the problem is that Nigerians, because of too much expectations, we are great people. When you have so much inside of you that is willing to be expressed, the tendency is to be very upset that things are not working the way they should work. There are countries that will relax and say, we are doing fine, irrespective of what is going on. But in Nigeria, because of the way we are so peculiar and we are so ambitious in the way we do things. If anything just goes wrong, we give a shout.
But these expectations, they're not too much. They're basics. Light, electricity, good roads, good health, education, decent living. I don't think it's too much.
Yes, but we also have to understand that our population is so large that you can't solve all the problems at once. In the past, we always make reference to the past. What was the population of Nigeria in the past when people were being fed in schools? Now we have grown so large that we need to tackle the problems one after the other. If your house is collapsing, for instance, you have to start from somewhere to rebuild. And then these problems have taken so long that it would not take, one government cannot finish a problem. All the government needs to do is to create the enabling environment. What is that enabling environment? Policies that will encourage people to invest in things like electricity, infrastructure, and all that. But this country will want everything for free. If the government makes a toll or says, okay, this road we don't have the capacity to do it, do the road and take a toll for a number of years, Nigerians will scream because we expect so much from the government. And there's so much that, and don't forget, the source of our income is just limited to oil and gas. Now the government is trying to make efforts to, diversify so that more income will come from other sources. I think that in due course, all these problems will be a past story. But Demarketing Nigeria, you can't just go and tell people, my child is bad, my child does this, my child does this. You have to tell somebody that, okay, yes, we are going through issues, but we are making efforts.
Right.
Yes.
You should say sentiment or what we're doing. Is it not just the ostrich in the
sand? I'm laughing because the credentials of the person who has spoken, who is he? He is an opposition person. And world over, demarketing a government is a tool that opposition always use, not just in Nigeria. So for me,
this thing you call demarketing is the reality of things.
For me, the reality is depending on the perspective. For me, it is still politicking. Because do you want an opposition, someone who run for the president and he lost another person to now go and when he has opportunity to speak, to start speaking for that government? The answer is no. So if I read a statement from somebody, the first thing I profile is the credentials of who is speaking. So you don't think that Peter Obi is... No, what I'm saying is that the ruling party, which of course my party, should know and should put their own information team aligned, knowing that opposition will always want to demarcate what the government is doing.
Why not ignore the messenger and look at the message?
Yeah, so what we're asking is,
the message, our cup is not half empty. Our cup is half full. And there is no country that their cup are already full. There's progression. Yesteryears, the right to generate power resides with the government alone. Today it has been bundled. Yesteryears, of course, the previous successive age-long governments have allowed us to be importing fuel, common fuel that we can refine. Today, it is no more, courtesy of Aligo Dangote. And that is because government has put enabling environment on bundled. You see, I like to talk to private sector to take advantage of what is on ground. Private sector should act more on once the policies are in place. Well, even though it will be difficult to share that opinion, but it is whether erroneously or what is the perception that we have accepted that government is not good at doing business. Government is to put enable environment and policies, and the private sector takes advantage. They can generate the power and then we'll have power. They can even today private sector build roads. So, and which is for me is a big pass mark to government. So we should start interrogating why is private sector not where I know capital is one of the issues.
Taxation?
No, taxation is not issue because if you want to bring in a serious investment, there's always a tax holiday.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I am sure. I am sure that if you want to invest in any critical sector.
If we go to the ports now, people said when you bring in raw goods in the ports, then you were paying close to 4-point-something million to clear it in the ports. Now it's 21 million.
What do you mean by raw goods? You talk of raw materials?
Raw materials.
You're not raw materials?
Yes.
Depending on check those raw materials that are heavily taxed. It means you have a corresponding alternative local. And if you have alternative at home, why are you going to bring from outside? Well, so any taxation, any commodity that have huge taxation, market, the purpose is to encourage domestic partners to grow.
Anyway, I think this conversation is very interesting. But due to time, I think this is the much we can take, and we want to say thank you so much. I mean, we really appreciate what I like the fact that permit us. We are a bit of a mixture of the Gen Zs and the kind of like reminds me of the superhero formation of the League.
Oh yes,
Justice League, something like that. But I mean, the League of Ambassadors, very interesting. I like it.
And great work you're doing.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and we also want you to be our partners because it's work in progress. Building Africa, media is on the forefront.
Absolutely.
After media, then other people can follow. So we can't get the Africa we want, except that you guys are on the front line as you are. So I commend you people for what you are doing, and we'll be knocking on your door very soon for more detailed program of the league, because we are packed full. You see, when we're talking about Africa, what to do today, we should also refer back. From Nkrumah them, Patricia Lumumba them, these men who came out when the darkest hour of Africa. The league want to reward them. We want to honor them by nation. So we're coming back. We also would like to come back to discuss details of our program. Because you have mentioned
talking about the Gen Z, one of the things that we are set out to do is to train and equip them in diplomacy, in the art of diplomacy. So we have a program to go to universities, collaborate with them, and teach them about democracy, good governance, and all those things.
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful. They'll stop insulting people online.
So that Gen Z, like Benga, who always nursed the dream of being an ambassador one day.
And then you can stop saying you like you.
Diplomats are very fine gentlemen. They mind their language. They don't insult.
I think it was after I watched Ambassadors.
The Gen Zs need
would
it.
have loved it.
Yeah. I wonder what I was doing in my time studying computer science.
Thank you so much, Ambassadors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.